What is happening, people? Welcome back to the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. On this episode, we'll be reviewing that Liverpool defeat and what was a crazy end to that game. They're looking ahead to Crystal Palace after Christmas. I'd like to use this opportunity firstly to wish everyone and their families a very Merry Christmas. Thank you all for support in 2025. Today, I'm joined by 4 guests across 3 different countries. So let's introduce them one by one. Firstly, it's been a little while, but great to have John back on the channel from Laz. It's Tottenham YouTube channel. John, how you doing?
I think this is my debut, mate. Actually, you've asked me many times, and I've just not been able to come on. But so it's great to be on finally. Christmas holidays and from work, I thought I'd try and get in here for you.
Thank you so much for your time. Yeah, you know what? You're probably right. I know we've been trying for a little while. It's probably I think it has happened, but I don't think you're right. Oh, thank you. Hopefully it'll be a good debut. Apologies about the circumstances, but it's difficult to bring you on if I'm honest with you in a win right now. So we've lost by more, is all I'll say, in recent weeks. But John, thank you. Always a pleasure. Matt, welcome back onto the podcast. Let me know where you're joining from and how you're getting
on. Thanks for having me back. I am coming from the lovely state of Nebraska, which is dead middle of the 48 United States. I may be on mute most of the pod because my kids are home for winter break at this point. So, I'll be talking a fair bit, but when I'm not, you'll see me on mute. But yes, everybody a Merry Christmas. And it can only go up from here, I think, at this point for Spurs.
Absolutely. You'd hope so. The only way is up. Let's use that and let's hope the team can stick by that. Matt, thank you very much. Philip, thank you for joining us as well. Let people know where you are joining from. And I hope you are keeping well.
Hi, yeah. Evening, everyone. Hi, Harry. It's a pleasure to be on as always. And with such good guests as well. Nice to see you again, Matt. And nice to meet you, John, as well. I'm dialing in from Frankfurt in Germany. I've been over here for probably the last 15 years or so, but I'm originally from just west of London in Berkshire. But now that I'm over here, kind of helping to run an official Spurs supporters club here, the German Lily Whites, just same as everyone, really, just suffering through I was going to say the good and the bad times, but it's kind of mainly more bad, isn't it?
Unfortunately, hopefully we can turn a corner. I always like to be glass half full, but it's difficult. I'm trying to, stay positive. It is Christmas, but it does look bleak for Spurs right now. Philip, thank you as always for your time. Simon, let's bring him on now, joining us from Sweden. Always good to have him on. Simon, how are you doing?
I'm good. I'm trying to focus on Christmas more than I'm focusing on Spurs right now. That's how I keep saying. So yeah, I'm well. Nice to be
here.
Good.
That's good to hear. No, it's good to have you. The pleasure is absolutely mine and ours. Yeah, I mean, I might make that task difficult, by the way, of trying to avoid Spurs and focus on Christmas, certainly for the next hour and a bit. So I do apologise for that. Hopefully you can still enjoy it. Just want to say before starting the podcast that I have had the pleasure to sit down and speak to for a good length of time, an hour, in fact, with former Tottenham player Mickey Hazard. So it was a real honour. I mean that. So please do check that out. That was come out on my YouTube channel tonight. It's already out. It's been out about 3 or 4 hours, and it'll be available across all major podcast platforms from tomorrow morning. And that completes a very, very good year for the channel. We've already interviewed Steve Perryman, former Tottenham captain, and most appearances for the club. Mickey Hazard too, the Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Trust. The list goes on and on. So thank you. Make sure if you're listening on YouTube, you do subscribe. If you're listening by audio podcast platform, drop us a follow and 5-star reviews. You don't miss all these big interviews, big discussions, and guests on from loads of different countries. Your number one place to be. Let's get straight to then. Unfortunately, talk Liverpool. I still think there's positives to pick out of it. I always like to be that one that looks for positives in defeat, but also, isn't tone deaf and doesn't ignore those negatives. Let's discuss the lineup firstly. For people who didn't see it, the lineup was Vicario in goal, backline of Porro, who started right back, Spence at left back, Van der Ven and Romero as the centre back. Bentancur and Gray sitting in front of them, then Bergvall, Simmons, Kudus and Colomwani. John, if you don't mind, I'll start with you. What were your thoughts on the team at the time? Was there anything that took you by surprise?
It's the usual, and I often rant about this on the Cheeseroom, about the way the team comes out these days in number order. It's so hard to work out who's playing where. My guess was it would probably be Bergvall playing on the left of the fours. He did against Chelsea until he got obviously the headbang. Or could be Simmons on the left. It was quite hard to tell, but I thought probably we were going to go Bergvall with a 4-4-1-1 maybe with Simmons playing just off. It's a bit tricky at the moment. We haven't got a lot of options, have we? Really? I mean, you look at the bench. We've got Dragoshin was back. That was probably the only surprise. But Odeber's, he's got nice feet, but he's not strong enough for me. I guess Moani in for Richarlison. Richarlison, he's Marmite, isn't he? I mean, I'm not a massive fan of him, but he does keep knocking in goals whenever he comes on the pitch. But does he do enough? He's a bit like Brendan Johnson. Does he do enough during the actual game? Because normally he spends half the game on the floor. So it's a tough one, really, to know. I guess when you looked at it, you thought, yeah, that's probably as best as we're going to get at the moment.
I think that's fair to say. John, I felt the same. Thank you very much. Matt, I come to you. On the lineup, I want to pick out something in particular. We saw Bentancur and Gray start again together in midfield. Is that something that pleased you at the time?
Yeah, I think it's better than Bentancur and Polina because Gray is certainly a lot more mobile and younger legs than Polina. So if we're going to play two kind of more defensive-minded center midfielders, I'd rather it be Gray than Polina if we're pairing it with Bentancur. As we've gone over multiple times on this podcast. So I'm with John. That's probably about the best we're going to see right now until we get some more help back. And it's now the best we're going to see for at least a few games, given the the play on the field and the results there with cards. But I wasn't that surprised. I will say it was nice to see Dragoshin at least on the bench. And him coming back. But yeah, until Kulusevski's back, that's probably about the best we can hope for.
Agree with that, Matt. Thank you. Sorry to interrupt our conversation. Just want to correct myself earlier. It's actually got 4 guests joining from 4 different countries, not 3 tonight. So it's just incredible. When I say I get fans on from all around the world, people go, yeah, right. Well, that's a prime example of that. So like I said earlier, please do get involved. Please do support. Thank you so much. Simon, I come to you. I've got to ask you about a fellow Swede in Lucas Bergvall. I mean, my first thing was when I saw the team was like, where's he going to start? He's probably going to be in that number 10 role, which for me was 2 negatives at the time. It meant that Xavi Simons can't be starting that 10, more than likely. It's not impossible, but I thought, right, he's probably going to play on the left and Bergvall's probably in the 10. I personally don't think either of those things help the team. What was your feeling at the time?
I think I have to agree with John. I think first and foremost, it's annoying that you kind of start out being confused and you start off trying to figure out, where are people playing, who are playing, what kind of attack is this? Does this lineup mean? What kind of midfield does this mean? So you start off tired and annoyed. And also it gets more confusing because he does change the formation all the time. So you start to think, okay, Bergvall, what does this mean? And because we don't have like a set way of playing, in my view, it becomes annoying and confusing. But I have to say, the more depressing thought I had seeing the lineup was I don't actually care. Like I never feel now that it's one lineup or another that's going to change how we play. So my issues with our playing style and the tactics go way deeper. So, and you kind of get reminded of that when you see the lineup. That gets depressing. That you go, oh, it doesn't really matter if it's Kulmani or Richarlison or if it's Bergvall or if it's Xavi, or because it feels to me like fundamentally we're not really playing in a way that is sustainable or brings out the best out of Bergvall or Gray or Xavi when they play in the position where you might want to see them. So, and I don't know if this is kind of this thing where negative results bear fruit to negative thoughts, if it's one of those things, the chicken or the egg. But yeah, I wasn't pleased, but I wasn't, I didn't see anything that made me feel like this is disaster. I felt more confused also. And even now, when you look at the different apps or how the lineup is presented, it's different. It's 4-4-2 somewhere. It's 4-2-2-2. So it seems like where the fans are not the only ones who are confused about what's going on.
It does seem that way, definitely. Interchangeable. It's certainly flexible, but not to our advantage so far. Simon, thank you. Philip, we've talked about, haven't we, Richarlison in particular, me and you, when you've been on a lot of times. Well, he didn't get the nod for this game. It was Kolo Muani. I mean, I agreed with it at the time. I'm not even saying I disagree with it now, but were you surprised not to see Richarlison in there? Because I know he was poor against Forest, only 3 or 4 touches, but his stats have been better this season, and we know he loves a goal against Liverpool. I was personally a little bit surprised, although I thought it was the right thing to do to not see him start.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was happy to not see him start. I mean, based on the fact that he didn't play him and Muani together, Muani, Kolo is getting, fitter and fitter, I'd say. He's playing more and more, which can only benefit him. And, I only assumed at the beginning of the game that he was obviously fit to start the game as a centre forward. And to be honest, I'm not really that convinced about kind of Richarlison playing wide or, starting out on the left or something like that. I'd rather see Muani, get the job kind of in the middle of the park rather. So I wasn't surprised to not see him start. Frank does seem to like Richarlison, but then on the other hand, Richarlison's been our only real option for most of the season, right? It took Kolo Muani probably 3 months to kind of almost get up to speed, right? In any shape of kind of match fitness, really. When he joined, you could see he was completely unfit. He was completely unfit. He couldn't even run, he was knackered after like a minute, right? When he first joined the club. And it's taken him, month by month, week by week through that period to get to a point where he's fit enough. And, I still think that Kolo Muani, if he is fully fit, if he gets a run of games, he's good enough, to be a starting striker in the Premier League for sure. I obviously had the pleasure of watching him for a season here at Frankfurt in Germany. And, he blew teams away. He blew defenses away, just through his pace, power. His finishing isn't like amazing, but it's good enough. So I still believe in Kolo Muani. I think that he could still be an option for us moving forward. Obviously, depending maybe a bit on, whether Frank is here next season and potentially what happens with all the sporting director and the management and all this kind of stuff. But I wasn't surprised, Harry, to kind of, finish that question. The one thing I would say is that, Richarlison does love playing against Liverpool. I guess because of his Everton history as well. And I mean, you could see when he came on later in the game that he was absolutely massively pumped as well. But no issue with not starting with Richarlison.
Okay, interesting. Thank you very much. Let's then move on to the action. So 33rd minute, first what I call huge piece of action was Xavi Simons receiving a red card. Simon, I'll come back to you firstly on this one. Do you think, taking the Spurs tinted glasses off, that this was a red card? Frank personally didn't think it was, as we said after the game. What's your opinion?
To me, it's a yellow card. I'm not going to, you want to start talking about intent and where the referees use intent as a means of deciding if something is a foul or not, or if something is a penalty or not. It seems like it's very arbitrary. But to me, it just looks like he's pressing. Van Dijk changes direction. He's trying to adopt, and he just puts his in the moment of not being concentrated or focused on what he's doing. He just puts his foot in the wrong place, and it looks bad in slow-mo. But to me, it's a yellow, and it wasn't a red. But again, with VAR taking away all the context around what's happening in the game and the momentum and the speed and just slowing it down and focusing on exactly where the boot hits the defender, I wasn't surprised with the red card. And I definitely thought that Xavi should have done better. It was definitely a moment of sloppy concentration. So I wasn't surprised. I wasn't that upset. But if you're asking me, it was a yellow card.
Great stuff. Thank you very much, Simon. Matt, I'll come to you. How do you view this? Because I, in particular, think that, regardless of my opinion on the decision and our opinion, is it enough for VAR to deem it as clear and obvious? And I'm talking about a clear and obvious error, which is what VAR was brought in for. They still believe that's the only purpose it serves. Was that clear and obvious error by the referee towards Xavi Simons' yellow card?
No, I don't think so. I think in real time it looked like a yellow. Yes, it's high, but you also have to take into account that Virgil van Dijk, they have similar initials, changes positions late. It's almost like he baits him into that move, which smart defending. Okay, smart move by Van Dijk, but that has to be taken into context, and you can't just sit there and look at, in slow-mo, he definitely stands on his calf and there's a rip in the sock and whatnot. Sure, anything can look like it's way worse or way better in slow motion than real speed. And, I thought the ref handled it properly in real time when he gave the yellow originally. I'm not sure that, I could see why it was given as a red. And Xavi looked reserved to just be handed the red and, whatnot. And of course, because it involves Van Dijk, it's going to be a red because that guy draws more red cards than like anybody else without actually getting them in return. But I don't know. I don't think it should have been upgraded to a red, but I could see how they drew that conclusion.
Okay, thank you, Matt. I appreciate the balanced view there. I'm going to go around our school of you because it was a big talking point in the game. I think it impacted the game hugely. John, for you, I want to get your thoughts on it. I just personally think it's a moment of just stupid, to put it lightly, from Xavi Simons. I think it was an action of a player that couldn't get involved in the game. He was struggling to complete 5-yard passes. I think it's a tackle of desperation, and he's just seen pumped for the game, which is usually a good thing. Also, we saw Anthony Gordon, actually funny enough, against Liverpool, and his tackle on Van Dijk, where he was too aggressive, too ego, and too hunger. It felt very similar, but in this case, Xavi Simons. I'm just personally a little bit frustrated, and maybe it's a lack of experience.
I think you're right. I'd forgotten about the Anthony Gordon one, and I think most of us at the time said that's a red card, but it's a really unlucky red card, and that's a bit how I feel about this Xavi situation. I can see why it was given as a red card. I don't think he's trying to injure him by any means. I think he's, like you said, said before, I think he's done a bit by Van Dijk's movement. He's just trying to throw himself in there. We've seen quite a few heavy tackles by him in recent games. He's obviously reacting to the comments that he's not been strong enough, which is fair comment, and he's trying to get used to the pace. It's unfortunate, but if that went against us, I mean, let's face it, if it was against us, it would have been a yellow, not a red, because that's just the way our luck's going. But I can 100% see why it was given. It's just more naive by him. But, later, I know you'll probably go on to this later on, but I think Bentancur's challenge was worse in the last minute or so of the game.
Yeah.
But at the same time, Virgil van Dijk last season.
If you slow down, yeah.
Say again?
No, I was going to say if you slow down. No, I was just going to agree with you. Like if you actually slow down and just look at the tackle and take away all the context, and you ask yourself, is it a dangerous tackle? Yes. Is he out of control? Yes. Like he doesn't know where he's going. So you can get how they get to the red card, but
yeah, I mean they'll wheel out the definition, won't they, of the endangering opponent and not being in control. Yeah. I mean, that's why they've done it. But it's made a good point. Is it a clear and obvious error by the referee? Probably not. It probably is in that little grey line between a yellow and a red, as then orange people like to say.
I mean, to be fair, Van de Ven's tackle on Isak wasn't even carded.
No, because he scored a goal. Now, if he if it had been saved, if it had been saved, it probably would have been a penalty and would have potentially got a red card.
Red.
That's just one of those weird things that happens in football. But
Strange.
last year, Van Dijk against Solanke in the cup raked down his calf. I don't think we even got a free kick out of it, let alone a yellow or a VAR review.
And he elbowed Richarlison.
Nothing.
In the league game.
This is my issue with VR. No, I'm just going to say, like, this is my issue with VR. Like, if you take away all the context, everything that happens before, everything that happens after, the intent, the fact that he got a yellow before, if we scored a goal, if you take all that context and just zoom in on an action and then just go by the rule book, sure, you might get a technical, you might get the right call technically, but I mean, the game is played in context. Everything fits together. And so it becomes this odd thing where you get these odd, inconsistent situations and calls, which is, to me, is the most annoying thing is how inconsistent it is. Because you watch the game now and you don't know what's what, right?
There was also a buildup of like 5 not called fouls before the Xavi challenge on Van Dijk.
Yeah.
That, had any one of those been...
This whole game was reffed so badly, which made us super aggressive, which is why we heard a lot from Liverpool fans about how dirty we were and how many tackles, like the Bentancur tackle, the Romero. I felt like the ref actually, the game got away from him, to use a cliche phrase, but it got away from him, and I think it was really badly reffed in general, to be honest.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much.
The ref was awful.
Yeah.
We'll get on to ref and his performance in just a little bit. But, Philip, there's no denying whether we agree with the decision or not. I personally probably do, but I totally agree that it, wasn't clear and obvious. I do feel like that does make it difficult. But regardless of that, it's huge, isn't it, in terms of what happened for the game, being one man light, and it just changes the whole game plan, doesn't it? I mean, people try and go, Frank will use this as a distraction, or those that want him in will use it as a distraction. But I think it's such a significant turning point in the game.
It's just typical, though, isn't it? It's like I don't want to use the Spursy term, but it's just a typical thing to happen to us again, right? Out of nowhere. We're half an hour into the game. For me, at that point, we were the better team. I know, I've been in a few X arguments today, with some fans who said, before the red card, there was nothing happened in the game. It was completely evenly balanced. There was hardly any shots. Yeah, I kind of understand that. But I thought, my eye view, just watching the game, I thought we were well in the game and, we were playing well. We weren't playing badly. It wasn't like Forest, where we didn't turn up. We were getting on the ball. We were actually winning some 50-50s, unless if the ref was obviously, doing his kind of Liverpool thing, and, either not giving the fouls, for us or the other way around, But I thought we were playing well, and that red card just obviously completely ruined the game for us. And I don't think anyone probably expected after that was given that we would even have a chance, of getting anything out of the game realistically, So I was more angry by the fact that just kind of impacted the game in such a big way, literally having to play against, Liverpool, the champions, albeit slightly weakened champions, compared to obviously last season, but still, you're playing them against 10 men. You look at their midfield, you look at their forward line, that's all that was going to do is probably make our attacking play probably even worse. And that's an area where, we need all the encouragement we can get, right? So just really, really annoying. For what it's worth, I think similar to everyone, I think really it should be a yellow card. But, as soon as you see one replay of it in slow motion, I knew straight away he's going to give a red card for that. And I think if that happens to the other team, and we're playing the other team and one of their players does that, we're all calling for a red card, absolutely straight away. So it didn't surprise me it was a red card. I feel a bit sorry for Xavi in some ways because, I can see obviously didn't go out there with, intent to injure him. Obviously it's his national team captain as well. But on the other hand, I was actually quite annoyed with Xavi as well because obviously he put us in that position for it to be given. And, I think 10 seconds before that, or maybe 15 seconds before that, he played a terrible pass straight into touch. He passed the ball out wide and, it was an awful pass. And that wasn't the first kind of misplaced pass that he'd done as well. So you could tell that he was a bit angry and frustrated about that. And he was throwing himself into challenges, but look what happened 10 seconds later. He had a tiny bit too much anger, bit too much energy. Van Dijk's a clever guy, you know, and it happens. So it is how it is. It's just annoying that it always kind of seems to happen against us, and it never kind of really seems to help us, does it? That we get into a benefit like that. But you know, I thought that after that, you know, I probably expected to go into the break then losing. I thought Liverpool would score before half time. So, you know, it is how it is.
Yeah.
And then Javi misses 3 games now, right? Because it's deemed as
Serious
I
foul
don't know what. Yeah, it's serious foul play, right? So, you know, he could have gone and tried to attack someone, you know, punch him, knock him out, or I don't know what, like, again, break someone's leg, you know, on purpose, and it'd be the same, you know, punishment, right? So 3 games for that is, I mean, that's just far. I mean, it's just far too much, right? And we're, you know, we have no chance of appealing that either, right? Because that's the law, that's the rules, right? So he's going to miss 3 games, which is a shame as well, because he was obviously getting regular game time. But, you know, all I can say is that from a Xavi perspective, maybe it's something that he can also learn from, you know, because in that moment he did probably see a bit of red mist. And at the end of the day, regardless of whether we think it's a yellow or red, he's let his teammates down, and he's let the fans down as well, right? In some shape or form. So, you know, I just hope that he probably can take something from it and learn from it, you know.
Fingers crossed. Philip, thank you. And also to the whole panel, thank you for your thoughts on that. John, I'll come to you because half-time it was 0-0. What were your thoughts on that first half, both before the red card and also after? Who had the upper hand, or would you say it's fairly even?
I thought Liverpool looked a bit blunt, certainly up until the red card. We were probably giving them too much time to get back into shape when we did win the ball back. I thought actually we looked a bit clinical. Is that the word? We looked more dangerous when we only had 10 because we knew we had to play counter-attacking football because they were pushing forward. And I thought the best chance of a goal might have been after that, funnily enough. I mean, there was a couple of moments. There was a ball fired across at Spence and he tried to do the old scissor kick and it was so fast he couldn't quite make contact. If he had made contact, there's a good chance he scored. I think the only other chance was Mawani. Was that before the red card or after? I mean, I think he's got a score there. He really has to. Maybe if he'd scored 3 or 4 goals recently, he would have put it in the corner.
I think it was before, actually, but I might be wrong.
Was it?
But yeah, it was a good chance, actually. He should have done better on that one.
Yeah, but I think generally I was pretty, you know, Liverpool are not in a great way at the moment. We know that. They have won a few games recently, but they were there for the taking. And I'm sure we'll get onto it, but that last 10, 15 minutes, they were panic stations, weren't they? Really were. So it's a bit disappointing in a way, but it's one of those games when I expected nothing. A lot of the chats I'm in were expecting a 3 or 4-0 defeat for Spurs on Saturday. So actually, I'm always looking for some positives, and there were a few positives coming out of it. That I know we lost, but if you take away the 2 red cards, and particularly the second one was a stupid red card with 2 yellows. Actually, we've only just been beaten by the champions, even if they're not 100% on it at the moment.
John, thank you. That's the way I view it. Again, going back to what I said earlier, glass half full. I totally agree. I mean, I think it's very easy, isn't it, to look at, you know, where we are on the table, look at the general performances this season, look at the results and go, oh no, it's another home defeat, rather than actually going, look, what could have been, what should have been, you know, on another day. That's just my own personal opinion. But Alexander Isak for Liverpool was brought on at half-time for Connor Bradley. Then in the 56th minute, he made the impact of the goal, assisted by Florian Wirtz, something that Liverpool fans haven't been able to hear or say a lot this year. Matt, I'll come to you. Firstly, before you get onto Spurs, maybe what more we could have done and the timing of the goal. That's a typical Alexander Isak goal, isn't it? You know, sliding kind of off a defender. If you look at all his goals in Newcastle, they're so similar in that way, just about, you know, leaning on side. So it's from Liverpool's point of view and Isak's point of view, I mean, it was absolutely perfect.
Yeah, agreed. It looked like can we say vintage with a guy who's still in his mid-20s? It looked like a vintage Newcastle goal from Isak, just, you know, him wearing the Liverpool kit. And it kind of has been how we've given up a lot of goals recently, just getting beat where they find a seam between the 2 center backs. and perfectly weighted pass gets past Vicario. Not sure there's anything he could have done about it. The tackle by Van de Ven, you got to be a little bit more in control on that one. I get you're trying to bail out the keeper, but yeah, it's not a whole lot else to say about that one other than it's a vintage ESAC goal. I do hope he gets better soon. Obviously, we're not rooting for key players to get injured for long times on opposing teams. And I guess luckily, because it was a goal, Van de Ven also wasn't carded. But yeah, I would say not much else to say about that one other than it was a perfectly weighted pass.
Matt, thank you very much. Simon, I come to you. I mean, Romero, I love him. I'm sure we all love him. But for me, I think that's a moment where I'd call a lapse in concentration and maybe a little bit of laziness. Plenty of options around him. No press from Liverpool. I personally think, by the way, just to side note, I think Liverpool knew that Tottenham really poor in possession. Matt times the ball went out of play. Tottenham against Nottingham Forest. I hardly saw much of the game, so I was working. But every minute I did see, our passing was woeful. It was really, really shocking. I had to check it was Tottenham playing and not, I don't know, some kids team down the road that had just taken the name and played, like a 5-a-side. It was honestly really, really poor. But Simon, my question to you, on this goal is about Romero. What's he doing?
Listen, there's no bigger Romero defender. You know this. I love him. I'll defend him. I usually defend him when he gets stick. I thought he had a bad game. I think he does have games where I don't know. I wouldn't call it laziness or lack of concentration, but he does get passionate and he gets desperate in his desire to win. And so one of the things that me particularly often criticize our players for is not being brave in their passing. And we have Romero, and what he does well is to be brave in possession. He tries to find those, passes between lines, and they're often risky, but they often find their place. This is one of those situations where he misses the pass. He gets desperate. He goes to win it back. But by doing that, he opens up the space in behind. And so now Van der Ven has to get over on his side and defend Isak, which is how he got to that place where he had to slide tackle and injured him. So he had that moment. And then after that, to continue on your question, he gets really desperate when we start seeing him doing these things he does where he takes the ball and he drives it forward. He carries it into the midfield. I don't know if you guys remember it, but just in the minutes before he got his red card, he was trying to drive the team forward. And when he gets fouled, what he's trying to do is he's trying to get up as quickly as possible, and he gets really annoyed because he's so desperate. Because in his mind, I believe, and this is again the most generous interpretation one can have, because I am a Romero defender, he gets desperate, and because he knows that he's at fault for 2 goals, right? And so, or he feels that way, that he was in those situations, and so he's trying to get up as quickly as possible. Konate is on him, and so he kicks out just in annoyance, and he gets that red card. So it was one of those games where all his bad traits, or when he has one of those bad games, which he has from time to time, they all kind of converted and came out in the same game. And why I'm trying to explain where I think it's coming from is because I think it's come from a winning mentality and being so desperate and being, losing himself in his passion in the moment and in the game. So yeah, I didn't think he had a good game, and it started with that pass, and it got worse from there on.
We'll talk about all the actions that you just spoke about there in more detail. So you set us nicely there. Thank you. I think you're right again in what you're saying. Appreciate it. Philip, in the 58th minute, Brennan Johnson come on for Mohamed Kudus. I mean, I like Kudus, right? And he's frustrated me a little bit in recent weeks, but was this one of his worst performances in the Spurs shirt? He just kept going backwards to the annoyance of Spurs fans who voiced their frustration and concern at least a couple of occasions.
Yeah, I mean, he was just poor. I mean, like the amount of times where he got the ball, like a lot of fans, a lot of people say, he's always got 2 or 3 players like ganging up on him, marking him out of games and stuff. And that is true up to a certain point in phases of games. It's hard for him to find space. But in that game, from memory, there was about 3 or 4 times where he had the ball in space. Like he could have driven forwards. He could have either taken on his man and gone down the line. But probably more concerningly, there was actually runners, so there was actually one or 2 options for him. So there was actually people running into space. It wasn't like he just didn't have any options, and he still, either didn't want to or didn't see them, or I don't know what, in that moment, he just, kind of went and faced his own defence again and passed it back or passed it insides. And I couldn't understand it whatsoever. And I don't know if any of you guys who watched on TV had the same feed as me, but there was at least 2 occasions where they actually showed Thomas Frank kind of straight away after that, or the bench or whatever, and they showed Thomas Frank, and he was angry. Thomas Frank was angry. He was going crazy. He was like pointing and shouting and like kind of this stuff. And that just kind of was quite interesting for me, because that gave me the feeling, because also a lot of people say that Thomas Frank doesn't want us to pass the ball forwards. He doesn't want us to play the ball quickly, whether it's down the channel or centrally or whatever else. But seeing that, kind of almost made it clear that Thomas Frank does want us to play like that in situations. He wants the players to pass the ball quickly, to players that are actually starting to make runs. And maybe 2 months ago, we weren't making runs all the time, but there were runs being made. And then to see someone like Kudus, who's probably our best, probably our best winger, right? Anyways, but like one of our best players, kind of not do that, and potentially also not carry out what Thomas Frank was or wants was concerning. So yeah, he deserved to get hooked, because he offered nothing in that game. I don't think he even, outside of kind of doing a few crosses, I don't think there was any kind of really dangerous kind of passage of play that he either started off or that he actually created. So deserved to come off. But it made me very angry about that, because he wasn't the only culprit, to be honest, in terms of the players getting into good positions but then just not being able to follow it up with either an easy pass or like a progressive pass. And I don't think it's because they're being told not to do it, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, it does make sense. Philip, thank you. In the 60th minute, Jeremy Frimpong was brought on for Alexander Isak, of course, injured in that tackle, which led to the goal. So for him, unfortunately, maybe certainly worthy, because he needed that goal for his Liverpool career. He needed it for this season. So don't wish injury on anyone. So hopefully, he's back as soon as possible. It wasn't a good tackle, which we have already spoken about, so we won't go on to that anymore. But in the 66th minute, Spurs, for them, it went from bad to worse, because Hugo Ekitike doubles Liverpool's advantage. John, I just want to start by saying, Ekitike seems like a player that's really hit the ground running this season for Liverpool. It's been a season of chaos, hasn't it? With players not settling in everywhere you look at Liverpool, but he seems to have done really well and again get a goal in this game.
I think if you look at Ekitike and also Voltemade at Newcastle, both of them have done very well. Big physical presences. You look at Wirtz and Simmons, much smaller guys that come from the Bundesliga. And I think there's a definite part of that is the reason why those Voltemade and Ekitike have hit the ground running, just because they've got the physicality. Isak obviously had no pre-season. He was out in Spain with his old club, wasn't he, training because of the whole issue with Newcastle. And I do think he dealt with that very badly. But I don't wish injury on anyone particularly. And I think it's unlucky for him. I did see a friend of mine sent me a picture from the Tunnel Club where he was on a wheelchair, not looking in a good way at all after the game. And obviously it's come out that he's got his leg broken. Essentially, I've been watching the highlights, extended highlights of the game from the Liverpool YouTube channel. So if you want to have a good laugh, just read the comments. Dirty Spurs came to play UFC. Spurs should have had 4 red cards and all sorts. It's quite entertaining anyway. But yeah, it's unlucky. The push in the back. Now, in the first half, Spence had the penalty shout, which I don't think was a penalty. But before that, he went against Bradley. He cut inside against Bradley, and Bradley fell over, and the ref gave a foul against us. The goal was 10 times more of a foul than that foul by Spence. Spence would have been in on goal as well. How many times do you see the likes of the Arsenal defenders pushing strikers, or even Arsenal attacking at set pieces, pushing their defenders and getting away with it? And then it happens to us, and again, it's the goal's given. And
didn't we give up a penalty kick for our guy getting put in a headlock against Newcastle?
Yes. Yeah, exactly. Now, Bentancur did start fouling him, but I'm not sure the ball was even in play at that point. Right. By which point, yeah, he went down because he couldn't move because the guy had him in a headlock. You're right.
John, is another frustration here that probably if it's outside the box, it's a free kick straight away?
Yeah, that was definitely a free kick outside the box. You're right.
Lovely stuff.
Check on that. I know they look at everything, but when they think, we're having a serious look at this, they announce a VAR check. You've got to look at that and go, he's being pushed in the back.
If it happened on a corner or a set piece, it would have been an absolute. They would have waved it off, and it would have been a goal kick for us straight away. But because it happens on a cross, nothing happens.
Why did they only show? There was one. There was like a sideways angle, which they only showed about 3 minutes later. After the goal, after pretty much both of the commentators also agreed that it should have been chalked off. How can VAR just decide within 5 seconds or 6 seconds? That's not worthy of a bit of a
I think the trouble is, Philip, that they're under so much pressure to make decisions quickly because people are complaining stuff's taking too long. So sometimes they're rushing it when they shouldn't be rushing it. I mean, I was watching an international stream as well, and we probably did the same one. And the commentators were saying, that's a foul, that should be chalked off. Whereas apparently Gary Neville on Sky was absolutely creaming it, saying what a brilliant header it was, and didn't mention the possible foul once. And then I think Daniel Sturridge back in the studio was saying, I think that is a foul.
Yeah, the stateside stream, I don't know if it's the same as the international one, showed a behind the goal view where you could see Ekitike 2 hands straight out on, and Romero's in midair, basically forming a C. That he's, I don't know how much more obvious.
Do you think Romero made a bit of it? He threw himself to the floor a little bit to try and accentuate it and make it a foul because it was a push in the back. It happens all the time.
I think a little bit because at that point again he's trying the desperation stuff Simon was talking about, but it's also hard to judge because he's in the air, right? I don't care who you are or how strong you are. If you're in the air, you have lost leverage and footing and a bit of strength, right? And you were just talking about how Ekitike is a strong presence, and obviously Romero should be. He's a center back, but if you're in the air and you're bigger than me, but you're in the air and I shove you, you're going to move and react, especially if you're gearing up to head a ball. Then you're in a certain position and leaning in a certain way, and if you get if somebody plays on that, then sure. But I would say he sold it maybe a touch, but not enough to wave it off as a dive.
Okay, lovely stuff. Thank you, Simon. You're the only one yet to say anything on this goal. For you, I mean, I asked you earlier tonight about Romero because I knew that you liked him, but for this goal, what do you reckon? In my opinion, it is a fault of Romero in terms of he should do better, foul aside or no foul aside. But I think also you have to have this. I think you just basically have to give credit to Liverpool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with looking for mistakes in the goal, but I think this is mainly down to the sheer desire and athleticism of Ekitike to come from nowhere, to leap above Romero and to score a great goal with great direction. I think it's more credit Liverpool than poor of Spurs.
Yeah, I think like John mentioned it before, Liverpool didn't have a good game, and so to me it looked like two low confidence teams playing, right? And the thing that kind of got them over the line was us playing with two less men on the pitch and them having that special quality in front of goal. Like all their key players were in there deciding the game, right? So in those moments, they had the attacking quality to make the difference, but they had a horrible game otherwise, which is why you can give them credit when it comes to those the few chances they had. I think they had like an XG of 0.6. They barely registered a shot on goal. I think they had 4 shots at goal in general. So yeah, they made it. Yeah.
Liverpool was I think it was their worst XG for a couple of years. I think it was 0.0. It was almost as bad as our
I have it
XGs,
here.
right? I think it was less than
0.66. So they didn't reach 1 XG. We had 1.7, 1.07. So yeah, they play horribly. And I thought like the first 30 minutes, we mentioned it before, and also the first half and going into the game, I just thought looked like two teams that, didn't really know, were really low on confidence, right? Nothing really happened until they got that favor by the ref throwing out Xavi. So that kind of gave them a little bit of confidence, and then they scored, and from then on, it kind of felt like we had more desire than them, but they ultimately had more quality than us.
Well, you say gave them more confidence, but then the first goal came from a mistake from Romero on a bad pass. So
yeah, but they still
they still took advantage of being up a man, but it took them like 20 minutes of actual.
Yeah, but I still thought they played better after when they were 10. Then when they got down to 9, then I thought they really played badly. But
Arnie Slot was having an aneurysm on the sideline as they just could not hold on to the ball up to.
Yeah, I just think that two teams playing, and then one team gets a red card. The other team, at least for 10, 15 minutes, are going to feel like, we got a shot now.
Yeah.
And then maybe.
Do you think second half, Simon, that it seemed to me that Liverpool were dominating and we were struggling to get out, and that's why QT tries to play that pass. If you look at it, he's actually Moani's making a run. He's pointed to him. He's trying to find Moani, and all he manages to do, he just because it's on his weaker foot, he mishits it slightly and it whacks into McAllister, doesn't it?
Yeah.
And if it had been a foot to the left, Moani could have been through on goal because I think he had Konate's legs and Van Dijk was out of position as well. It's an unfortunate thing, but it was a poor pass from our best passer.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm pointing it out. I think like if you really look through a comp with Romero, you're going to see a lot of passes that are this it goes this much the other way, and they're free on goal. He makes those passes all the time, and he has that bravery. It's a little bit, you go back to a lot of the things that we heard on the Ange that, when you play bravely, you're going to make mistakes, and he always plays bravely. And then sometimes, as you said, he's not hesitating on his weak foot. He sees something, he's going to go for it. And so it's the same thing with his aggression. Like he plays with a certain aggression, a certain will to perform and to win. And with that aggression and that desire, you will see games where you experience the downside, which is, when he gets the red card because he makes a mistake, and then he gets too excited, and then he really wants to he feels that responsibility of being the captain and just being South American in general. And so I just felt like, and John said this, and I think Philip mentioned this before, like we looked better, and I think the stats back that up, that we played a little bit better, even though it's kind of counterproductive because we only had 9 players on the pitch for a large amount of that game. But I think, and I'm a glass half full guy too, and I want to be positive. You know that, Harry, I'm so positive. I'm desperate to be positive, but I think the good games we have seen have been in games where the other team have kind of allowed us to be good, like to allowed us to kind of get into the game. And I'm not saying that because to shit on Frank. I just think that's where we are at right now. Like if a team kind of lets us into a game, and in this game, the good thing is that we saw that these players are still playing for Frank in the sense that they are still going after the game with 9 players on the pitch, and you saw that fans were still in the game and cheering them on, and I thought that was beautiful, and I want to give a lot of credit to the players and to the coach and to the fans for still being together. But fundamentally, when I look at the tactics and how we played, I think Liverpool played a really horrible game. They played slowly. They have this rest defense that really plays into our tactics, which is we want to go wide and we want to go direct, and so they let us into those channels, and so I think they kind of played into our hands in some ways. But we did take advantage. We tried to take advantage, and we created more. So it's a little bit of it's positive, but I want to be honest about the context. But we also saw the bad things. I think we saw a lot of the times how a really well-positioned press really gets us in trouble. Like we don't know how to play out from the back. And if we get up the pitch, we have this really bad habit of only playing through Kudos. And I think that might be why we saw Kudos be a little bit frustrated, because he gets doubled up on, because the other team knows that that's how we play. And much of our attack just gets down to the right side and we get crosses in, and so it gets really predictable and static and slow, and it's really easy for the other team to defend against. And so we still have to find a way to have a really defined way of being able to play on the ball, because we see a lot of bad passes, and we see, I don't know how many passes we saw, as Philip pointed out, just out on the sideline, like to nobody. And I don't know how many passes we see from Vicario playing it long to nobody, because he doesn't have the ability to do that. Still, we keep on trying to do that. So we need to find a way to be more fluent and effective and unpredictable on the ball. So I think it was a game of the good and the bad in some ways.
Okay, Simon, thank you. Before we progress with this Liverpool review, I just want to give a shout out to a few people in the comments listening live on YouTube that have contributed. David Clark, regular, Merry Christmas to you, David, and your family. More cautious, more, I would say, negative. He would say otherwise. David Clark says, Paulinho, 4 goals, 3 assists. What's great done? You make me giggle. Let's talk about us when we're giving great appreciation. Big up to MK Dons and Arsenal fan in Luca. And we'll read out, to be fair, David Clark's couple of comments, because some interesting ones. He says, throw any tactic out there. It doesn't matter, he says, when 70% of these players can't do the basics of defending, midfield play, or strikers who are totally inept. Sack Frank, these Muppet players remain. Okay, interesting. Those are the words of David Clark saying it how it is in his eyes. Big up to Little Zeus. Let's keep it up. Thank you, mate, for coming in. What else have we got? More from David Clark. David Clark says, what do you call studs on a player's calf and rack down the Achilles tendon? What planet are we on? Okay, fair enough. I know how you feel then about that. He goes on to say why he didn't score that great chance, because the Liverpool defender made a fantastic block, which deflected the ball against the bar. That is very true. It's worth noting it was a very good block. David Clark's a big Romero fanatic. For anyone that doesn't know, he's even said that Romero's heading ability has to improve, but he still stands by he's the best Spurs technical player when he's 100% fit and that can make an impact. And David Clark's put a few comments, and I won't read them all, but I tell you what, try and pick out a select few. He put here, he's just saying that Richarlison as well, that, when Richarlison fries with the chaos, that's very true. He said Romero, he goes on to say Romero's 9 yellow cards in less than 14 games. That's not a captain, that's a liability. So he's actually digging out now Romero a little bit. Oh, the tables are turning, but let's progress with this review, because talking of captain Cuti Romero, the 66th minute he was booked. 71st minute, Odegaard and Paulinho come on for Great and Bergwijn. And 76th minute, Konate was booked. 80th minute, this is where something did change. Richarlison come on for Rando Colomwani. Philip, what do you make of Kolo Muani's performance? I think he huffs and puffs a lot, gives his best. I think shows bits of quality, often unlucky. Is he the long-term solution?
Who knows, to be honest. It depends on so many factors, actually, I would say. Like, again, as I mentioned earlier on, I'm a big Kolo Muani fan. I think if you just look at his quality and what he's shown over the last 4 or 5 seasons, I think
he's one of the positive things about this season so far, in my view.
Yeah. He offers something completely different. He's got pace, he's got power, he can finish, He's actually better in the air than he looked, maybe, in that game where he should have done better with that header, right? But, he can be good enough, and he can play wide as well. He can play on the left, he can play on the right. He can play anywhere across the front line. So I think he can be. But I mean, even in this game, he had probably our 2 best chances, I guess. He should have done better with a header. I think he found it difficult to generate power, kind of, but he should have done better with it. And that chance which got deflected onto the bar or the post or whatever, he was a bit unlucky with. But again, he needs to get the ball in dangerous positions. And, what you want to be doing is, okay, you want to be presenting Kolo Muani with chances to finish, right? Because he's a good one-touch finisher as well. But what you really want to be doing is getting him the ball, either on the edge of the penalty box or out slightly wide, where he has the ability to do a quick move and go past, his opposition player and get a shot away. Or play another pass, and we don't do that enough. Regardless of whether it's Muani or I could arguably put another striker in there. Really, he or they are just not getting the ball in enough. Like, they're not getting the ball enough times in enough dangerous positions. That's the reality. And if we were doing that to Kolo Muani,
I think you're getting into something really important here. Go on.
He would have scored. I mean, he hasn't scored a Premier League goal yet, right? I think, or has he? Like, he's only scored against Paris. He would have scored 5, 6, 7, 8 goals, I think, this season. Anyways, if we were more effective as a team, but we are not giving him the ball or not enabling him to get the ball in areas of the pitch where he can make a difference using his technical abilities, which he's very good at. He's a different kind of player to, just throwing him out there as a very simple example. Although Simon, you obviously will know more about him than I do, but the lad who plays down the road, Gyökeres, just as an example, right? Just in terms of what Kolo Muani can kind of do. If he gets the ball, right, and he kind of can run into space, or he can do it, Muani can do a trick. He can get, he's so good at that, and we're just not enabling him.
He thrives in chaos and an instinct, and in coming with speed and having space in front of him. And so I think Kolo Muani, one of the best things about him is so versatile. Like, he can play different positions. He can be a striker in different ways. He can hold up. He's technical. He can link play. He's got a great shot. To me, and I want to throw this out to Philip and to Matt and to everyone else. One of the issues I'm kind of starting to know, to kind of a theory that I'm starting to build, is that we have built this squad and this team to play a very specific type of football that is attacking, and we focused on recruiting technical players, and we got Van der Ven because he can defend the high line, and we got Romero because he's good on the ball, and we have all these profiles that play and we built this squad for 3 or 4 years to fit in certain style of football. And then, Ange came in because he suited what we wanted to do as a club. Like, he started with a club strategy. And so we got a coach who fit into what we wanted to do, because it's not the coach that recruits, it's the club, right? And so what I think we're bumping up against is, I feel like and I think that might also be the league is changing, but what Frank wants to do is he's focusing on the physical attributes, like being athletic and being strong in duels and corners and throw-ins and being really direct in our attacks. And I think sometimes what I get frustrated with is that doesn't suit Xavi. It doesn't suit Romero or Van der Ven. I mean, Van der Ven, Romero, they're not box defenders. Like they don't thrive in defending.
I get what you're saying, Simon. Apologies to interrupt, but shouldn't they adapt? The money they're paid, and the fact that they're world-class players. You cannot say Romero is a world-class player. You cannot say Simmons is a gem if they're not adapting to playing a different style.
I think it's the other way around. I think it's the other way around. I think if you, as a club,
but you got to buy into a manager. I mean, I don't think they bought into him. If I'm honest,
I think it's a little bit of both, and I think this is why Dragushin.
Let me just finish the thought. What I'm saying is, you can't spend hundreds and hundreds of billions in recruitment and in strategy and build it up to be something, and then recruit a coach and sell him as being adjustable, being able to adjust to players and getting the best out of players that you have. That was what we were sold on. And so I think what he's bumping up against, Frank, is that he has a way he wants to play, and I'm not certain that it suits the players that we have right now.
That's a good point. I just think the club need to recruit better, personally.
I think it's been a couple of things. I think you're right that generally there is a disconnect between some of the skills that the players have, and what the manager wants to do. I think this is why Brennan Johnson doesn't fit. He was brought in because he is a very good attacking winger in Ange's system, so he fit Ange. But when you go from Ange, I'm going to have free space to operate winger doesn't work when you have to beat guys 1v1, which is why Kudus was brought in, because he can beat guys 1v1. And our midfield doesn't work right now because they're not as – a lot of these guys are used to having more space to operate because of the system that Ange had previously used.
My example
Frank
is
doesn't
Newcastle.
use that.
Like Frank wants to play like Newcastle, but Newcastle have a really physical, big team. Like they're really big.
Yeah.
And they suit that athleticism and being really strong in duels. And we have Bergvall and Gray and Xavi and Odeberg and
right.
Like,
I will also say that at some point the recruitment has to fit. Everybody's got to get on the same page, because it seems like half the time we want to go the Chelsea route of get the young guy and let him grow and develop, and at some point they will become a top-notch Premier Leaguer, like Moises Caicedo in the midfield at Chelsea is unbelievable now, right?
Yeah.
Or Cucurella or whatever. And then sometimes it's like, well, the fans really want us to compete, so let's go get a polished, proven guy who can help us right now, and the two of them don't. So I think there's a general scatter shot of strategy happening between recruitment and managers.
Can I just add one thing? I think Frank can do this. So I'm not even saying this means we need to change Frank. What I'm saying is I think he will find more success if he leans more into the attributes of the squad he has, instead of starting the other way. Like, I want to play like this and then try to, push place that. That's what I'm saying. Like,
I agree with that as well.
I agree with.
I think that the problem that we have is that we're generally in a mess anyways, right?
Yeah.
Because our squad has been so poorly assembled overall over the last X amount of years, or let's say even since Pochettino left, really, like the squad has been a hodgepodge of different signings, disasters, people that don't really fit a certain way of playing, but maybe also don't have the flexibility to do more as well. Look at our fullbacks as well. We have very little options at fullback. Someone like Porro anyways, he seems incapable of just being a bit more of a defensive option in some respects. And so number one, we're in a mess anyways, and it's going to take us a couple of years probably to really, reset and rebuild a bit like what Arsenal did, really, in some respects. I know they've gone big the last couple of windows, but they had to rebuild their squad. That's the first thing. But number two, like you say, Simon, Frank, he's probably, well, to be honest, I'm actually not quite sure how Frank wants to play, That's my biggest issue right now. And I've been Thomas Frank in the whole way through, right? When we
He's
signed
never had a
him, we
real
hired
style,
him.
though. His whole
Well-
career has been you adapt for each opponent. And yeah, when you don't have the tools to do that, it doesn't look good and it looks more defensive. And
Right,
What I can
is
say
it
is-
No,
also
it doesn't,
possible-
and that's it. That's exactly it, though, and that doesn't help him at the moment because he's used to being with a more of a mid-table, battling team, right? Where every single game they're probably not the favourite, and
But
they
we feel
need
like
to find
Brentford, don't we?
solutions.
We feel like Brentford right now.
do
In
at the
my eyes,
moment,
we are a
yes.
mid-table club without an identity. I think that's where we are at right now.
Well,
So listen,
unfortunately.
I think if you look at coaches like Pep or Ange or the team and the recruitment strategy and the team we tried to build, it's all about control. You control possession and you control the game. And so we brought in players that could play in that way. What Frank did a lot in Brentford is he doesn't really care about controlling the ball and controlling controlling the ball and controlling the game. He's more about, doing the most with what you have, which means direct attacks, getting the most out of the margin plays like corners, free kicks, throw-ins, and then being really, really defensively solid. But I think he can play in a way that's focuses more on controlling the game, controlling the ball. And so it's less quick front attack, defend. It's more, we have the ball, we want to control the possession, we want to control games. And so it's just a different way of building up. It's a different way of, if you want to wait to get a chance to attack and attack in different ways. But what I'm seeing is that he's going the Brentford, route right now. Right? It's really direct, in behind, Poro down to Kudos, press high, win the ball, try to attack quickly. And so that's chaotic, and you're going to lose the ball a lot. You're not going to win possession, the possession game, and you're going to have to defend a lot. And so, as he himself said, it's risky to try to play it safe. And we're seeing the fruits of that right now. The less you have the ball, the more chances you're going to concede. And so we've seen that. We conceded more goals this season at this point than we did last season. We conceded 21 goals. We conceded 19 last year. We had off a year last year. We taking less points. We're less defensively solid. I think we scored 36 goals last year. We scored like 15 less now. So I think he has to pick and choose. He's got to choose the way he wants to play and stick to that plan.
Okay. Thank you very much. But just, Simon, I believe you have to go, right?
I have to leave, actually. Yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me, guys. Have a pleasant evening. And
always a fun debate with you, Simon.
Good you.
Thanks for your time. Thank you, Simon.
Good you. That's good. Happy Christmas in Swedish.
Yes, you too. Love to the family. Thank you very much, Simon.
Bye-bye.
Great stuff. Thank you. And I just want to say lastly, it just frustrates me, right? We signed these players, for managers. We've done it with Ange, done it with Conte. We don't give them 5 minutes in the job. It's all right signing players, but give them a chance to work with them and use them. And yes, we signed them, but I don't think we signed world class, right? I think Vicario at the time seemed like good recruitment, and contrary to a load of negative kind of vibe around him, I still think it's good recruitment, but it's not David Raya, is it? It's the easy option out. Go on, Philip. You're busting that.
No, just on that point though, right? I mean, that's a good example, isn't it? We could have signed David Raya. We were with him. We were in discussions with him first. He was up for joining us, and we didn't want to pay the money. And in the end, Arsenal got him for cheaper, right? Yeah. Because we'd already signed Vicario at that point, and there was no one else in for him. I think from memory, and I might be wrong again, but from memory, we were talking about 38 million for David Raya, 38. And we didn't want to pay that. We wanted to pay 27, 28, 29.
And Brentford got it wrong, because Brentford went too high at the start, and then the issue was Arsenal just going for less.
Exactly.
Less.
And, didn't Arsenal pay 28, 29, something like that for in the end, right?
It's like a loan with like 20 something, yeah.
That's
crazy.
I was having this debate with a friend of mine here who's a Chelsea fan, and he's like, "But you guys have spent. You're like sixth in spending in terms of like so don't give me this other average play. I'm like, no, but it's not the amount you spend. It's what
where
you
it's
spend
spent.
it on.
Yes.
Because I was like, Eze, we tried to get Eze for $5 million cheaper than Arsenal, and we wound up with Xavi. Eze's a proven Premier League player. Where would we be had we spent the $5 million and gotten Eze in the midfield or the left wing instead of Xavi, who's he could be good, great, but you saved $5 million, and now you have to spend 3 years hoping that he turns into Eze.
Well,
and so
why
you
don't we
spend
sign both?
60.
We lost two, attacking midfielders through injury. Could have signed both.
You could have, and so this is, and he was like, well, that's I said, Levy was king of, I spent 60 mil, so the fans can't be upset. No, you spent it in the wrong way. You overspent on, probably overspent right now on Xavi. Who knows? Maybe he turns into that. You spent on Tel because you dilly-daddled on other guys that you lost out on, and you're trying to cheapskate your way into getting Savinho from Man City, and now it's going to turn into costing you $20 million more because he signed an extension and all this. So it's not that we're not spending the money, it's who we're spending it on. And I agree with you. I think if you look at the form table from calendar from match week 11 under Ange, the first 23-24 match week 11 all the way through currently, in terms of form table, we are mid-table. So that tells you
even that high.
We're lower. We're
lower,
bottom
actually.
4 or something. I think we're bottom 4 now.
Well, actually. I think we were ninth in the finishing up of Ange, and they were 15th or something, and so it averages to like 13th or 12th, something like that. But like that would go to show you that maybe it's kind of Frank is trying to figure out who we have and where we need to grow. So I don't know that we don't know what playing style he's using. I think he's testing. I think what can I get out of these guys? It takes more than 6 games to figure out a squad.
It does, but pre-season should be a big part of that, really.
Okay, but then they went and sold Son out from under him in the final preseason game. So you have a left winger.
Well, I think the club knew about that for an awfully long time. That's what's so frustrating, that we didn't sign a single left winger. The way he speaks was like he made a decision at the end of the season. If you listen to the way he speaks, it was like he'd been waiting to announce it for months. I think that is the case.
The problem is that he's changing it up too much. He's trying things, and it almost seems like he's a bit desperate to try and stumble across like the winning formula, like in terms of his tactics or in terms of his selection. And the problem is, and again, as I said, I still think that we have to give Frank time, realistically, because I think he deserves the time and he needs the time. Right? That's how it is. And I mean, the reality is this squad isn't as great as some people think, but there's still good talent in there. And at the end of the day, we did finish 17th last season. And I know people will say, or some people will say, well, it's because we rested some players for the Europa League or we had the injuries and stuff. But the fact is, we still lost 22 games last season in the league, and that does not breed confidence. Winning a trophy, in a competition where you're one of the favourites, will not magically create self-confidence and create winners, right? That you just turn up on the pitch and, and kind of, decimate everything in front of you, So like, this is a big piece of work for Fran. But again, the problem is, if he keeps chopping and changing, trying to find, like maybe not a quick route to that, but like, to try and find his way, there is the danger where he's just going to run out of time, because he won't be given that time anymore because we're just not getting enough points. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I do think, and I think and I agree with you, Matt, as well. But I think that he does. I think like what Simon was saying, if we, assuming he stays and we stick with him, which I think we should do, I do agree though, and I think that he needs to at least start getting more consistent in terms of like trying to play, in a way which is kind of visible, because that's why a lot of fans are against them at the moment, because they just can't see any progress. They can't see anything. They don't even know, how are we trying to play? Like, are we just crossing the ball? Are we trying to get it into Xavi? Are we, Do you know what I mean? And there's a gap at the moment, and I think he needs to find whatever it is, without changing it every single game, to try and win some of those fans back as well. Because otherwise, we're going to get to it's a snowball, isn't it? That's going down the hill and it's getting bigger and bigger.
I'm a huge Franken guy. I think he deserves all the time. I've talked to Harry, about this and whatnot. But I do think that the fans are playing a role in this, changing it up, because he senses desperation in the fans to want results, and the new, the Lewises pay seemingly more attention to the talk around the team and whatnot, and so this desperation sense comes into Frank that, I have to change it to try to get results, and then the fans complain that he changed it to get results and they don't come, and everybody looks worse, and then the time gets run out because the fans have complained. I'm not saying we don't have a right to complain; it's our job, but there's that plays into the snowball effect.
Before we get back on track with the Liverpool review, on my lunch break today, it was a busy day, so it come a bit later at work because I finished college, taking up the hours, right? Bear with me a second. So on my lunch break, in those 5-10 minutes spare that I had, I'd done a little bit of research, right? And I'm not always for AI at all, but I thought, right, okay, let's just use it to my advantage. I put in a search, what was, Brentford's top 3 problems under Thomas Frank, and I put also separately, what was the number one reason why they struggled at home. Their conclusion was, it doesn't mean it's right, but that Thomas Frank adapted at home to suit the supporters, playing a different brand of football, which meant Brentford had more success on the road. That was incredibly interesting because when watching Brentford, never really noticed that. But if you look at everything, Frank, that last season in particular, they were awful at home. And it looks like from data, looks like from the analysis here provided AI and other websites, that it's a very similar problem, I think, where he's playing differently at home to entertain, to please the fans. We're seeing that with Vicario, the pressure on him, for example. He's going constantly long, isn't he, at the moment? And, you can just feel it inside the stadium yesterday. He's got no option anymore to play out from the back, which is fine. Then the fans groan, it also gives it away. But the point is, I think we are very similar issues, but Frank at Brentford and over in his short managerial stint in Denmark brought the fans and the players together. That's what he's known as. And I said it yesterday, lastly, and I'll say it again. There's a quote of Thomas Frank up inside the Brentford Stadium, the G-Tech, right? And the quote, I don't know if you guess it, but it's actually attack, attack, attack. Not many people guess that, right? It's come from different managers, Pep Guardiola, other managers you've heard that from. But that's the words of not Bielsa, not Pep Guardiola, but Thomas Frank. So I don't buy it. He's a defensive manager. That will shock some people. It's not many Brentford fans actually know that. But when I went there as an away fan, I did see that, and I heard about it and I went to go and see myself. It's in very small writing, but that's his quote from a press conference when he joined the club. That's what was an interesting thing to put out there. But thank you.
Just to hurry on that quickly. I think the first half of last season, up to sort of this time, they had the best home record, but the worst away record, and then it flipped.
It flipped completely. Like literally,
after Christmas, they couldn't score at home. I mean, they beat Newcastle 4-2 at home last season, and Newcastle were playing quite well and made some good results. So the difference is, you look at Bournemouth, they drew at home to Burnley at the weekend. Now, he'll get away with the dog's trying to get through the cat flap. He'll get away with that at Bournemouth. But if Iraola was at Spurs or Chelsea or anyone like that, because he's been linked with a lot of big jobs, he'll come under a lot of scrutiny, and that's the difference for Frank. At Brentford, you get away with it because the expectation is never as high.
Yeah.
When you come to one of the bigger clubs, you're going to be under the cosh a lot more.
Yeah.
Well, I had brought up earlier, several games ago, that if the results for Frank were flipped at Tottenham, I don't think he'd be under this pressure. If our road record and home record were flipped, I think people paying tickets to come see the team play and getting wins and at that point, up until Everton, we hadn't lost on the road, but we had won once at home. And if you flip that, I think people are like, oh, well, going away, the players aren't sleeping in their own bed, they're out of routine, whatnot. But it's because the fans are paying the tickets and they don't see the results.
I think also, Matt, there's an element of the manner. So we went to Arsenal and we almost didn't try. The same at Chelsea at home. There was just it seemed to be no plan. The players seemed to know what they're doing. There was no passion almost. I mean, we said about Xavi. He was almost too wound up for the Liverpool game. At least against Liverpool, we had a bit of a go. Yeah. And if that's going to give you 50% of the fans.
Right.
And I mean, I think in a way, the ref did Frank a favour on Saturday because he got the fans on the side and the fans kept going. That was the loudest that stadium has been for a long time. I don't know if you were there, Harry. Were you there Saturday?
No, I wasn't. I was unfortunately working. Should have been. My family were.
But yeah,
usually.
But I was at the Fulham game. My goodness, I mean, there was a lot of empty seats. I got given a free ticket for that game. But obviously, being 2-0 down, the first goal was, Porro should have done better, and it took a deflection. Unfortunately, the second goal, obviously, we were all like, "What are you doing? Kick the ball out!" And you could tell, you could almost see what was going to happen. And the one player on the pitch who had the ability to curl the ball in from that point is Harry Wilson, and it's just unfortunate, but. It's very hard for the fans to get behind the team when there's nothing, when they're not showing you anything, and that's the problem. And I think they are trying to be a bit more proactive and progressive, but ultimately we need to see what the newly branded owners, the people who've owned the club for 24 years, the Lewis family, are actually going to do. It looks like Paratici might be going to Fiorentina because he doesn't get on with Langer. The deal he had was set up by Levy in the first place. And he's been given carte blanche at Fiorentina and he gets to move back to Italy. So I can understand why he's going back there. But they need to sort this out pretty quickly. Supposedly, they've been having meetings every week about transfer targets. They should know who they want to get. They've probably had conversations with multiple agents and even clubs. The Semenyo thing is dead in the water, which is a good thing because it was never going to happen. So let's move on.
Yeah.
And hopefully they can get 1 or 2 players in at the beginning of January, but not just average play. Dragushin, again, a player for the future, maybe, or he's a reserve centre back. Werner was a short-term fix, but not really a fix. We actually need a couple of quality players. 2 quality players could actually take this team up quite considerably. They could make a difference. Players tend to play better with better players. It brings the level up. And that's, for me, what we need to do. We've got to identify those players, get the deals done, get them in for the FA Cup or even the Sunderland game if we can.
100%. Thank you all for that. Let's get back on track then. We had a good conversation there, but let's finish the Liverpool review so we can move into Palace and a little bit as well on Paratici. So we spoke about, I believe we left the conversation at Richarlison, if my memory serves correct. In the 83rd minute, he got the goal. I mean, John, his yearly goal, I say yearly, it's probably twice a year, isn't it? Twice a year goal against Liverpool. Instant impact.
He's just got this knack. Like I said, he falls over. He actually won the free kick by falling over this time. He doesn't win many free kicks. And even the late chance. Well, sorry, just before the ball fell to him, he fell over in the box.
Did you?
And it just, Van Dijk made an absolute hash of the clearance. It just fell to him and striker's finish. But it's that real difficult thing with Richarlison. He is scoring goals. I think he's got 7 in 17, which isn't a great strike record, but much better than anyone else we have. But is he offering enough to the team overall? And that's my worry. In all-round play, he doesn't hold the ball up. And that's what we need at the moment. You look at Visser and Mbeumo, they both could hold the ball up or run over the top. And that was Frank's get out of jail free card last year. And Schade, because of his pace.
It's true. No, it's true. I just think we don't have someone like Mbeumo. I just think maybe it could have been that. It still could be in Kudus. I think Mbeumo's got a little bit more quality. I like Kudus, but I used to watch at West Ham. You used to think, wow, what a good player. But for me, it was just consistency. It was just he was a really unpredictable player, which often served him well. It often was his benefit. You just didn't know what he was going to do. Also, you don't know what you're going to get from him. He's one of those players. He's not like Traore at all, but where I will compare them is you just don't know what they're going to do, especially at that end product. It's so unpredictable. It's a 50-50 punt. You know they're going to look dangerous, but are they actually going to beat their man? They're going to go forward or back? That's what we'll say on that one. But thank you. To progress, 83rd minute, Dominic Szoboszlai was booked. 85th minute, Mickey van der Ven was booked. The yellow cards start to pile in as well now, by the way, with 9 minutes given of additional time. 90th minute, Federico Chiesa was brought on for Furpong. He come off. I believe did he get himself a yellow? No, he did get himself a yellow, but he just got injured. He was starting to lose his head, wasn't he, a little bit? Talk of losing the head. I mean, I didn't even do that deliberately, but it has led us on perfectly, isn't it? 93rd minute, Christian Romero. I mean, for me, this was the exact example, of a captain's performance if it was opposite day. It's literally everything you don't want. It's 2 individual errors, unfortunately, for a goal. Mistakes happen. They're footballers, they're humans. But then just to lose your head. And I was having this conversation with my dad. He had more of the issue with the 2 individual errors. I just said, like, I think they're wrong, but he's human. I had more of a problem when you made those mistakes. And as a world-class, World Cup winning defender, you should know how to put that right. And do you know what such an annoying thing is that still annoys me, even whatever, 48 hours, 72 hours on, is the fact that the momentum was with us. We just won a free kick, for goodness sake. And Philip's actually, I think he's spot on. And I've been thinking about it for the last half an hour, and you said that, Philip. I think it's purely passion. And I get that. It's easy for us to sit here and go, what's he doing that for? So, yes, context is vital, but be the better person. We've got a free kick, we've got a chance, and logic would tell you, any common sense would tell you, Tottenham having one lighter player for 6 minutes at the end when we're on the attack is not going to help us. With the progressive passing that Romero brings, the leadership Romero brings, his physicality and aerial presence as a defender in the box, he completely lost his head, and that for me, you just can't forgive that. Then he's trying to dispute it and go off and whinge. That's not someone that that's not captain behaviour. But Philip, you start the conversation. I would like you to continue it. Romero, what is he doing?
I mean, he's cost us, possibly a point there in some ways, right? Anyways, because I think that if he doesn't get sent off there, two things. Number one, we play another 10 minutes practically almost, with an extra man, and we have a chance probably realistically of trying to get a point. And also, he actually, there was a chance maybe that Konate might have even got a second yellow, actually, and he should have done. Konate should have got a second yellow. Okay, he probably wouldn't have done anyway because we know what the breath was like and everything else, right? But Romero, through his action, took that away. If he had just been professional in that moment, who knows, right? It would have gone, the attention might have gone back onto Konate. And he could have got a second yellow if you watch the game back. But as soon as Romero did that took all the focus. That was the main action that came out of that play. And he got himself sent off. And then he just looks like a bit of an idiot, trying to argue his case, etc. But I was really annoyed by him on, after that performance. And again, I don't want to be anti-Romero and jump on his back and everything else. I think we all know how good he is as a defender. We know probably even that he's got levels that he can go up still. I don't think he's playing a very good season. I don't think he's been particularly great this year. I know he kind of had that captain's performance against Newcastle, right, with the goals. But I think generally speaking, he hasn't been as good as he has been. I know that the whole team isn't performing, so that's an element as well. I said it in a couple of other groups and maybe even on another pod, in the last couple of days. But I don't know how many people will agree with me out there, but I'm questioning whether Romero is the best captain for us, to be honest. And this is not debating the quality of him as a player, right? As a defender and as a creative, instigator in our team, or one of the kind of driving forces in our team. I am questioning though whether he is, number one, doing the best job that he can do as a captain. I don't think he is. But number two, bearing in mind he took over the captaincy in the summer, I'm just putting out there whether he's doing a good job as captain for us, and whether possibly someone else would actually do a better job overall in terms of...
I'm going to ask who when you make this point.
We don't have that many clear options in the squad. I mean, if they were fit, then Madders would probably be the number one choice. Kulusevski could be a good choice. We don't have that many options in the squad at the moment.
I would say of the fit, I would go with his center back duo and move it to Van de Ven.
Well, that's what I was going to say. I mean, my clear choice would be giving it to Mickey, but then actually giving it to him kind of as part of this, long term, stay with us. He's done his interview with Gary Neville last week, which is a good thing at creating a bit of, insight into him and a bit of publicity, but it can also go the other way. It can also be a bit of hey, look at me. I'm kind of putting myself into the marketplace here a bit, I know that Real Madrid are after me. I know that Barcelona have been interested in me. Bayern are interested in Mickey van der Ven. why not give it to Mickey and say that this is a bit of a long-term kind of thing for you here? But look, the problem is, if you take away the captaincy, like mid-season...
I was going to say, he's going to threaten to leave. He would definitely threaten to leave.
You know what I mean? It's very easy to say, let's give the captaincy to someone else. But to actually then go to Romero and say, by the way, you're not going to be our captain anymore.
Ouch! He might two-foot you. He might two-foot you and get another red card put off the pitch.
If you do that with any player, they're not going to take it in a very good way. And bearing in mind that Frank is where he's at the moment, with his squad of players and where he is at the team, something like that realistically isn't going to go down well. I'm just putting it out there, like how and when and whatever else is another thing. The problem with Romero is he's going to be banned for one game now anyways. Like we still have Danzo, we have obviously Dragusin coming back, but there's not really an argument to say that Romero can even really be rested too much, because he's clearly our best defender really. But I'm just putting it out there. I'm not convinced by Romero as our club captain. I'm not convinced that in games he offers enough as a captain, and I'm not talking about him running around centre forward, kind of losing his head a bit and like trying to make things happen. I don't think that necessarily, is what defines what a captain is. It's just something that I've been thinking about even before the weekend. I don't know.
Thank you for sharing. No, this was about being honest, and it's a conversation that probably won't go down too well, as you said, or certainly if it it does happen, I don't think it will. But it's right to raise it. We can't. The reality is, Philip, we're not in the place where we should be. We're not where we want to be, and you have to. I don't believe in pointing fingers too much, but when you're in the situation we're in, you've got to go, what's gone wrong? What can we change? So, Philip, thank you for raising that.
Sorry, just one mini little point to add on to the end of that. Right, is. Romero's also stormed off the pitch, a number of times, kind of, right? Without going to the other players, without going to Frank, without going to the fans, right?
But so did Van der Ven. Matt's right to mention Van der Ven there in terms of, I think he's a really good option. But I would also say to that, Matt, that we saw what happened when he blanked Frank and the fans. I don't like to see that from anyone. It could be. He was vice captain. Was he captain on the day? I swear he was captain on the day. And that, for me, was like worthy of saying, look, not again this season.
I'm a bit old school around things like that. Like anyone who shows a perceived lack of respect, right, even on little simple things like that, annoys me.
And
it'll be the same in. To be honest, it'll be the same in the world of business or in work, or you got a boss, you've got like a kind of a bit of a hierarchy.
You can't walk past them and go like that past them. Wave your arms at them.
So I just think that in some moments, Romero also is. A bit too hot-headed, a bit too emotional, and I just wonder whether, like, again, I don't want to compare with people that aren't there, but like if we had someone like Madders, who was the manager, the captain, you could just see straight away how he would get to come around the players and probably get them together. Do you know what I mean? I know he's injured, but I'm just putting it out there, because if we're looking at ways of how we want to improve this team, how they react to one another, how they act in we're always talking about a lack of leadership. We always talk about how we have this leadership team or something, which I don't really understand 100%. But
what do they do?
Anyway, I'm rambling on now. So
can I just say one counter to that, Philip? Because I like to play devil's advocate. Would be Romero's been a lot more committed this season. He's come back from international duty early rather than staying there. He's not missed loads of games just before Argentina due to play. So he's definitely taken it seriously. He does speak English in private. Obviously, he doesn't like to do it in public. We saw the fans forum. He was having a translator and stuff. It's very hard to know without being inside the dressing room what his effect is in there. But he has got to learn to keep his cool a bit more. But at the same time, there's some of his teammates need to recognize when he's losing his shit and pull him aside and talk him down a bit. Maybe that is Van der Ven.
That's true.
Mm.
I
mean, I would say Bentancur, he's an experienced player, but he tends to lose it. He's put some nasty challenges in at times this year where he loses it. But yeah.
No, you're right. And Philip, thank you for raising it. John, thank you for the devil's advocate. I will move things along and speed things along a little bit quicker. But John, on this moment from Romero, is he lucky not to be missing 3 games to be directly sent off straight red rather than a second yellow? Because some would say it is violent conduct. I personally think it could be.
it would be a soft one, but yeah, potentially he does kick out at him, and that would be a red card normally. And I think Philip was right. You know, the challenge from Konate was pretty bad, and again, I don't think he's deliberately doing it, but it's endangering the opponent. He's whacked in the back of the head. That's more dangerous than probably raking down someone's Achilles, because you could knock someone out. So easy, Konate could have been given a straight red or a second yellow for that, and they were wobbling. They were definitely wobbling and under the cosh, even though we've been terrible at home and with very little goal for it. So, you know,
I think that shows how far they've fallen as well, Liverpool. And I know they hold on, and results is what football's about, but they just looked totally no control of the game at all. But the 95th minute.
Oh, has he gone? Harry?
Yeah, he's gone. he's had a freeze, I think.
Oh, he's had a little freeze.
What happened in the 95th minute?
We played pretty well, didn't we? We showed some fight, and that's what we wanted. We tried to make some chances, and we had a couple of chances in that last 10 minutes. Oh, Harry's back. There he is. You good,
I don't know how much you heard from me there. Yeah, can you hear me all right?
Nothing.
Nothing.
Oh, we got you now. You're back.
Yeah.
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Repeat it.
Right, sorry, I was going to talk to self there. Right, we say it again. So I don't know how much you heard, so if I repeat myself, I apologise. 95th minute, Bensko was booked. 97th, McAllister was booked. 99th, Robertson come on for Etitike. 100th minute, Florian Wirtz made way. And the 101st minute, Richarlison was booked. So the game finishing on the 102nd minute, ended 2-1 to Liverpool. John, what one word would you use to describe that Tottenham performance overall across that, well, I'm going to say 90 minutes, but 102 minutes in the end?
Oh, gosh. Passionate, I guess.
Oh, yeah, I like that. You definitely showed passion, heart and sleeve. Thank you. Matt, what one word would you use to describe that result for Tottenham? This is difficult.
I would say the result. Having watched it, I would say feisty.
Feisty. Okay, that's a good one. Matt, thank you. Appreciate that. Philip, what one word would you use to describe that referee's performance that is PG and appropriate for the channel, those that listen back in the day? Thank you.
Toilet.
That's a good one.
Polite.
It's polite.
Yeah, it's a polite version. Yeah, I mean, look, I think we all agreed it was, to be honest, that was one of the worst refereeing performances I've seen, like at the Lane. You know, it was a bit of a weird one as well, because it's not like the referee got, like, I don't know, 10 decisions clearly wrong kind of thing, right? But he had zero control of the game. VAR wasn't used or implemented effectively. He didn't give, you know, right at the beginning of the game, there was about 5 or 6 fouls from, you know, from Liverpool players that he didn't give. He gave fouls against us when it clearly wasn't. You know, Liverpool players were like throwing themselves to the ground. It was just poor from start to finish. And he added on some time as well in the first half from memory as well, from nowhere, when it kind of seemed like all they wanted was to, you know, for Liverpool to score at the end of the half. And they also checked like that goal that we scored as well, like Richarlison's goal, for what seemed like about 3 minutes. For no reason whatsoever. It felt like they were trying to find a way to like rule it out, honestly.
Yeah. Do you believe it's poor, like, from VAR and the referee, or do you think it's a case
Both.
of some people go, it's corruption or it's bias, it's this and that? I don't think it is. It's inconsistency
not corruption.
and just
It's not corruption. It's not corruption, and it's not like.
Thank you.
I wouldn't say it's clear. You know, I don't want to. You know, it's certainly not corruption, right? Let's be
one
very
thing's
clear.
both ways as well. You know, I mean, as a Tottenham fan, I believe
It's
a lot
incompetence.
of things go against us.
It's
There was a
incompetence.
couple as well. Like Szoboszlai was booked, for example. I mean, I'm sure he said something to Richarlison, but I love Richie, for example. But out of anyone there, you think maybe he would be the one that potentially get booked. I'm glad he's not. But there's a couple of
I mean, he shoved the guy down in the goal and then got up and bumped somebody else, and then.
So I think sometimes we have tinted glasses on, and even if there's logic behind it, and even if it, you know, they do get the rub of the green. In this game, you know, the referee, a lot went against Tottenham. But sometimes it just feels like that a little bit more. When you look at it back, I mean, I personally, again, I can put Spurs kind of hat off this time of year. Instead of tinted glasses, I'm going to say Spurs Christmas hat for the festive feel. But the point is that, you know, I just think it's very easy to get hot-headed in the moment. I look back at that and go, yeah, it could potentially be a foul, that push on Romero, but also, I think he's got to do better. I think there's a lot you could justify the referee's thinking. I don't think you can justify VAR though. Who are there to clear up, the clear obvious. They're there to correct the referee. I don't think that's serving its purpose. That's where I do have a problem. But that's just how I feel personally. But no, thank you very much.
I'm gonna offer one word on the performance as well, and I would either say probably improvement, honestly, or like constructive, possibly. And the only reason I say that is I'm comparing it to the last couple of games before that, especially the Forest game. As John said as well, I was expecting to probably lose that game 3-0 or 4-0 beforehand. I thought Liverpool would probably play us off the park, and there'd be a lot of criticism afterwards. But in the end, we played actually quite well in that game. I know we didn't create a million chances, but we still got, we still had 10 shots or something. We had an XG of over 1. And I honestly believe if we hadn't had the red card and it was 11 against 11, again, maybe I'm too optimistic, but I think we would have had a chance to win that game. Because Liverpool weren't offering anything. And I think second half, once we brought on our subs and stuff, I think we could have really got after them. And that red card sadly cost us. But it's for me that game, I was just angry about how it all happened. But in terms of performance, I thought it was all right. Absolutely, I thought the team was set up well. I thought you could see that Frank had spent the week with the players, working on stuff, and it could have gone differently. And as always, we take the result and we move on, and let's see what happens against Palace, right? Very tough game. I know you're going to talk about it now, probably.
Yes, Ed there, please. You've led me on perfectly. Great. That's absolutely perfect. Philip, thank you. Palace is next. We're just going to get thoughts and score prediction. John, I'll start with you. Let's talk about the opposition then in Crystal Palace. They're a strange side, aren't they? I think it's fair to say Glasner has taken them from here to here. He's taken them very far. They look competitive, don't they? Having said that, do you think they're a weird side this year that just can't cope with playing 2 games a week because of the squad depth? Because when they play on a Thursday, let me tell you, boy, does it affect their weekend game. A 4-1 loss against Leeds is a prime example of that. This season, they haven't won. I don't think they've drawn a game after playing on the weekend after they played on Thursday, if that makes sense. Is it squad depth that's the issue for them?
I mean, to be fair, in their defence, they played Thursday, then Saturday, and they had 48 hours because of the Carabao Cup game they're playing against Arsenal tomorrow, I think it is. So they were going to have a 2 games squeezed in, and they gave a 16-year-old a debut on Thursday night against Cups, which I love the Europa League and the Conference League because I'd never heard of Cups, and I've been watching football a long time. So it's great you find out all these new teams from different countries. A bit like Bodo Glimt, hadn't heard of them 10 years ago. Glasner's a very good manager. Problem is their squad's too small. He was throwing his toys out of pram before Eze was sold. And obviously the reason Gakey didn't get sold and they're going to lose him on a free is because he almost walked in the summer. Because I think before the first Premier League game, he was saying we've only got 17 first-team players. So, a 4-1 defeat from Leeds is tough. And Leeds are on the up now. But, they've lost they lost to Man City, which is, fair enough. Then they drew with Cups 2-2, then the 4-1. I think they're going to have a tough game at Arsenal tomorrow night. And then they've got 5 days off before they play us. We can only hope that they're knackered when we play them, because that is a tough ground to go to, Selz Park. They make it a really intimidating atmosphere. Last season, we did not turn up at all. I think Van der Ven made a big mistake, didn't he, which led to the goal where he lost the ball at the back. But, Glasner's a wily old fox and could well be the Tottenham manager in about 7 months' time because he's going to be free. And depending on how Frank does in his first season, could be on the way out. So you look at the players. It's interesting that they want Johnson because I know Pino, their right winger, he's been all right, but hasn't really hit the ground running. He's only scored 1 goal. They need goals. They can't just rely on Mateta. So, it's a tough one. It really depends on how if we turn up or not.
Yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Matt, can I get your thoughts before we jump into score predictions?
Yeah, I would say that when I watch Palace, I think this year they've had the most trouble with teams who play direct. Leeds play pretty direct ball, as most teams who just came up do. Man City have kind of transitioned to a more direct team over the last year and change. So I think if we play more direct like we did this past weekend, I think it may go well for us. If we try to kind of finesse the ball, like we saw Chelsea struggle there at Selhurst Park earlier this year. Obviously, there was that, crazy VAR disallowed goal and whatever, but they kind of pass the ball and try to finesse it and whatever. They've struggled against them. So I would say if we put some of the more direct stuff in play, we'll look better. I am concerned about, missing some of the pieces we'll be missing, like missing Xavi and missing Romero. Isn't great, but I do think we have the squad depth to, at least play well enough to get a result.
Matt, thank you. Philip, can I get your very, very quick thoughts and to kick us off with a score prediction?
I think like John said, it kind of all depends a bit on how we, or if we turn up, in terms of like how we approach the game, right? With energy, with focus, with pressing or non-pressing, So basically, if we turn up there like Forest, we're going to lose that game, obviously. But if we turn up there and we're in the game from the beginning, and you can kind of see the energy, and you can see that we're trying to win 50-50s and stuff, or if we even sit back but we're actually kind of organised and like we actually try and do something with the ball, then then I think we'll get a result. It's just as simple as that. Tactics here or there, whether he plays 3 at the back, 5 at the back, whether he plays Paulina in midfield alongside Gray, or whether he plays Richie or Moani up front, I don't think it really makes that much difference right now. I'd say it's literally down to how we turn up in the game in terms of our mentality, our fitness, our energy, and whether we're up for it or not. And if we don't, you'll see it straight away. You'll be able to see it within 2 minutes of the kickoff, and I think you'll be able to predict the result straight away almost. I think that we will. I'm confident that that we've learnt a bit from the last couple of games, and I think that we'll get a result there. Whether it's a win, I don't know. I think that we'll get a point there. To be honest, I think we'll get a point, and I'm going to predict a 1-1.
Oh, he's gone.
Didn't like my prediction.
Apparently
No, obviously didn't like you. Matt, do you want to do yours, mate, next?
Yeah, I'll say I'll be bullish here. I'll go 2-1 win for us. I think if we again show up and play direct, we've got the ability to score. Palace is fairly disciplined, but you can find the seams there. I think if we play
He's back.
with feistiness, I think we get a 2-1 win.
Lovely stuff. Maybe I've been too negative about the owners this week because someone's cacking into my Wi-Fi by the seams of things. But thank you for bearing with me. You never know. Matt, I'll come to you. Can I get your score prediction for the game?
Oh, he's just done it.
Yeah, I was just saying. I'll just recap quickly.
Oh, for God's sake!
I'll say I'll 2-1 win for Spurs. Is what I'll say.
Lovely. You guys are on it. I couldn't hear a thing.
I'll go the negative. I'm going to say we're going to lose 2-1. I think Wharton's key. We've really got to manage Wharton and Mateta. Danzo against Mateta could be an interesting battle at the back. I imagine Bergval's going to play in the 10 role, as we haven't really got anyone else now, with Selz obviously at AFCON now, isn't he? So there's no other options. So it's whether he brings Odeberg in. He might play Richarlison and put Moani back on the left. That seemed to work quite well against Brentford and gives a bit more physicality. Or does he completely change it and try playing him as a front two, as they did at PSG, and mix it up? He could play a 4-3-1-2, couldn't he? Or give him a few different options.
Absolutely. Great stuff. That wraps us up for the Scarfey Spurs Talk Podcast. It was a longer one. Thank you all for bearing with us as we talked about 2 games, and that is because there's no podcast Thursday. State the obvious, it is Christmas days. There's no Premier League podcast either. So in terms of the podcast point of view, this is the last one, not 2025 actually, but the last one before Christmas. So I hope you all have a great Christmas. Merry Christmas to you all and your families. Thank you for supporting the podcast. Thank you for supporting me and my guests as well this year. I've been very lucky to get guests on from, I think this is right, 14 different countries in 2025, which I think is mind-blowing. So thank you so much. A lot more as well listening beyond that. You double that in terms of people listening to the podcast in different countries. So thank you so much. Appreciate all these Spurs fans around the world getting your opinion. But do get in touch as always. Let us know how you're feeling right now as a Spurs fan. John, thanks so much for coming on. Where can people follow you and talk to people as well about the channels?
You can follow me at Spurs Fan John. I'm the person who's upset the whole world of Twitter because I've suggested that I got told the other day that Solanke's had another operation and everyone's calling me a liar and all sorts. But I can't really reveal the source, but it did come from somebody who works at the club. I'm on the Cheeseroom audio podcast every week, every other week or so, and not so much recently, but I'm part of the lads. It's Tottenham YouTube channel, which was called the Cheeseroom YouTube channel previously, but we rebranded it sort of to split the two of them up. But Davo and Gibbo and Connor Levynomics is a regular on there, and they have their Grumpy Old Spurs show most weeks, which is a bit of comedy and a bit of a whinge about Spurs, which obviously at the moment is much easier to whinge about Spurs than some seasons has been. And yeah, catch me on Twitter, as I said, and happy Christmas, everyone.
Absolutely, John. Thank you for your time. Great debut. You're welcome back on any time. If you need someone as well for the audio podcast in particular, you know where I am. Hit me up, give me a shout. Thank you so much. Philip, thank you as always for your time. I know you've got to jump. Talk to people briefly about where they can follow you and what you do for the German Lily Whites.
Yeah, I'm pretty much only on X at Frankfurt Spurs.
You're on Insta, aren't you?
Yeah, I am on Insta. I'm there on my normal name at Philip. At what is it? At Mr. Philip King or something like that.
That's it. Yeah, I think it's that. Yeah.
I'm not very Spurs related on Insta though. It's pretty much more personal stuff. But yeah, on X is kind of my main thing. Yeah, I'm here in Frankfurt, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show. I mean, I'm on the board here of our official Tottenham Hotspur Supporters Club that we set up a couple of years ago here, which kind of covers the whole of Germany, actually. But it's called South Germany Spurs, German Lily Whites. So we're currently kind of just trying to obviously grow our following in Germany. And we're just trying to set up a meetup, actually, for the Frankfurt game, which is obviously end of January here. And I think I said it, recently here as well. But, to any fans out there who are planning on traveling out to Germany end of Jan here to Frankfurt, feel free to hit me up on X at any time if you want any advice, places to go, restaurants, bars, hotels, whatever, or even about getting tickets if you haven't got one. So just hit me up at any time. And, for sure, there's going to probably be about 5,000 Spurs fans, I reckon, in Frankfurt, as it looks like at the moment. So we'll be setting up some kind of official meeting points and stuff as well. So, yeah. Thanks for having me on, Harry. A pleasure as always.
No, pleasure's mine, as I said earlier, for all of you. Thank you, Philip. You do some great work for the Tottenham community. Thank you for all that you do. It goes unrecognised. Thank you. Not by me, though. Matt, thank you so much for coming on as well. And like I said, 4 guests from 4 different countries. It's such an incredible feeling. I'm the one stuck in England, I'm sure, along with John as well, with the horrible weather. But, yeah, we mustn't grumble. We mustn't complain because Christmas is upon us. But, Matt, let me know and let people know as well where they can follow you across social media.
Yeah, you can follow me on Blue Sky or X. Both have the same handle at the Selzman. I'm just there. I'll chat, American sports, Spurs, whatnot. A little bit of some other stuff that strikes my fancy. But yeah, I'm not, just hanging out here in the States. Merry Christmas to everybody. It's not going to be a white Christmas here.
What's the weather like, Matt, at the moment in Nebraska?
Right now it's unseasonably warm. As I sit talking to you now, it's like 60 Fahrenheit, which is unseasonably warm. It's
it's quite warm, man.
Yeah, I mean, to put it in perspective, 32 is freezing in Fahrenheit, so 60 is quite a bit. I can't. I know the conversion. Not going to do it off the top of my head though.
Do you know what it is roughly?
Let me see if I can.
Well.
Oh no, you're good. Let me
not.
see if I can do a converter here real quick.
Just what's some context compared to what the weather right now and what we're seeing in
that's like 17. That's like 17 degrees.
Yeah,
almost.
It's pretty
16,
warm.
17.
It's like shorts
where I
weather.
am.
It's like shorts weather here, so it's not supposed to be this warm at this point.
Book me a one-way ticket.
Sorry, Tottenham. That's a British summer, no? At least in the summer.
Yeah. It is. No, literally is. No, great stuff. I won't keep you any longer, but I just want to say again, thank you to everyone that supported me, supported the channel, supported the podcast, viewed, watched, followed, subscribed. Thank you so much for listening via audio podcast platform. Drop us a follow and a 5-star review. Listen on YouTube, please do subscribe. Cannot stress enough that interview with Mickey Hazard was absolutely amazing. Real honour for me to be able to talk to him. 2 Spurs legends interviewed as well. I did try and interview another one in Gary Stevens, but unfortunately connection issues because of the hours difference. He was in Thailand, but I couldn't quite work that out. It wasn't compatible on StreamYard. That's something we aim to do in person actually for 2026. So yeah, 2 big interviews this year. And Tom Hotspur supporters trust as well. They revealed what it was like to work with Daniel Levy, what it was like still to work under Enid. They revealed some quite big things. Some things they pushed back on and go, look, we're happy with the club about this. But they did also vent their frustration, and I got 2 people on from that, so it's not just one person's opinion. You've got someone who's been there for over 30 years and someone that's been there just a year, so to get the 2 different perspectives. So yeah, it was a big year for the channel, for the podcast. Thank you so much. There'll be more content from me from now till Christmas Day, but in terms of podcasts and the Spurs point of view, that's it. But if you're interested in the Premier League podcast, come back tomorrow, Tuesday, 8:45 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time, because after work I'll be there and we'll be reviewing every game that's just happened in the previous game, week 17. But thank you so much. I will not bore you anymore. Like I said, have a great Christmas. I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Follow all my guests across social media. And as always, there's only one thing left to say. Get the words out, Harry. And that is a massive come on, you Spurs. Thank you for watching.
Mega.